Hey, I wanted to talk about Lorde saying that Kanye and Cudi stole her set design at Camp Flog Gnaw for the Kids See Ghosts debut show. It kicked off today with this Instagram story that Lorde posted. She started with a picture from her tour in March and then juxtaposed it with a picture of the Kids See Ghosts show, her tour, Kids See Ghosts, and then said, I'm proud of the work I do, and it's flattering when other artists feel inspired by it to the extent that they choose to try it on themselves. But don't steal. Not from women or anyone else, not in 2018 or ever. Which it caused some talking points. One, just is this stealing? And does gender have anything to do with what's going on? Or is this a way to, I don't know, put a thumb on the scale to sway the conversation a certain way and make it more gender oriented than what it might be fair to, if that's a fair thing to bring to the conversation or not? Um, so people were debating that today. Lorde fans, of course, were like, yes, call them out, get yours. Like, we stand like a ruthless legend. And Kanye fans were just like, what the fuck? Like, do you not see similarities to maybe what Kanye was doing before? Or one of the major talking points that emerged was that Lorde, the stage design was by S. Devlin. And as Devlin had worked with Kanye as far back as 2005's Touch the Sky tour. She had actually worked with him on Touch the Sky, Glow in the Dark, a performance at Atlantic City, uh, Watch the Throne, and Yeezus. So she had worked with him for nearly a decade of concerts. And an initial talking point then was that Kanye had worked with S on St. Pablo. There was one article I saw, people on Twitter saying that, and it's even something that I mentioned in my initial tweets. Lorde making this a gender issue is the weirdest thing to me, but if we're getting technical, the Ye Cudi Camp Flog Gnaw stage is essentially St. Pablo with better protection given the height and venue. Lorde hired S. Devlin, who created Kanye's SP stage. Now she's complaining he stole. What the fuck? But as this article notes, the St. Pablo stage was created by John McGuire for Trask House. And we don't know who worked on the Camp Flog Gnaw staging. Was it John McGuire? Did Kanye work with Devlin again? Did he just look at Devlin's recent work and see what she did for Lorde and think, yeah, I want that, and just did something similar? I don't know. That's one of those things where the more information we have, the easier it is to talk about it. With how vague the information is at this point, it's easy to start to construct perspectives that fit whatever perspective you want to have. If you want to defend Lorde, there's information to do that. If you want to defend Kanye, there's information to do that. If you want to be neutral, there's ways to do that. If you want to attack everyone, you can do that too. Until we have more information on this, it's kind of hard to figure out who's wrong, who's right. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, and this article I just thought was cool, it kind of went over who did all of Kanye's tour designs. This was HP Chung for Hypebeast. So all the way back to College Dropout Tour, you can see Touch the Sky, Esmeralda Devlin, Glow in the Dark, Esmeralda Devlin, Watch the Throne Tour, notice the box, Devlin likes her boxes. It was Bruce Rogers, Donda, Devlin, John McGuire. So Kanye worked with McGuire all the way back then. Yeezus Tour, Donda, Devlin, McGuire, Vanessa Beecroft. St. Pablo, we just got Donda Surround. And we know that Trask House was involved with that in some way, and McGuire was involved in that with some way, but it wasn't quite listed here as this article was in preparation. It would be so nice if they updated it, or I could find an updated one. But I wanted to point out just that there might be, what's it called? Parallel ideas? I think that's the term. where people that haven't talked at all, don't know each other at all, happen upon the same ideas at the same time, just because there may be something in society, whether that's the news or a movie or a TV show, just something in pop culture that they both can kind of pick up on the details and ignites them down a path that they kind of have parallel concepts. Like when Henry Ford created the Model T, he wasn't the first one trying to design a Model T. There were a bunch of people making cars at the time, right? He just emerged as the one that was the most popular. When the Wright brothers were trying to fly, there were dozens of other people working on similar designs, just not being able to find the one that the Wright brothers did. And they weren't talking. Some of them were. There were some shared ideas, but there's just concepts all the time, whether that's a joke that somebody comes up with, where somebody might post it to Reddit and somebody might post it on Twitter at the same day, and then they accuse one another of stealing their idea, when it's just like, no, you both had the wording for the same exact joke just because like this person was in the news, right? So if we're looking for how Kanye could have had a similar idea to what Devlin did with Lorde without actually looking at what Devlin did with Lorde, I just want to point out that in 2014 at the X Games, and for a little before this, Kanye was doing some individual shows post Yeezus tour, and he had this giant LED screen and would stand in front of it. By the way, I was at this shit. I bought a 3-day wristband for X Games, and I don't give a fuck about the X Games, just so I could get a seat at this shit. And I went the day that it happened and just sat around for 8 hours by myself. Like, I was immensely bored. The X Games events weren't nearly as exciting as I remember them being when I was like 10 and watching on ESPN. But I was just waiting the fuck around for a long time. Mac Miller actually opened, I believe, which at the time I had no idea who he was. And then Kanye came on and did his thing. But you can see he's using this giant screen, and he had different images on it throughout the night. So right now it's just him. But when he did Blood on the Leaves, for example, there was a waterfall in the background. That I'm trying to see if one of these could have it. Nope. Next is just gonna pay Little Pump. Nah, not the mix I was looking for. But there were a bunch of different images on the screen that fit whatever song he was singing. And then, of course, we have the St. Pablo tour where he's on this floating fucking stage above the crowd. And you get him kind of standing above. And he used a bunch of lights during this to kind of change the mood throughout. Or we had the laser lights beaming out at different points in time. Different spotlights that were coming down. You see that orange. Oh, God, it was so awesome. So it's not that hard to see him going from this stage that's just open air to what happened at the Kids See Ghost tour. Like, it's just a bigger screen than what we saw. Let me go back. It's a bigger screen than what we saw here, but a similar concept of Kanye in front of it. And then a similar concept to the floating stage. It's just, given the height of this stage and how many people were there in the venue, it's closed in rather than open air. So, I don't know. Lorde did have something very similar you can see in this video, where it's the stage, there's visuals behind, there's all these lights. This thing is on hydraulics, I think. Is this the same fucking Ferris wheel? Sorry, I'm getting distracted by the fact that when it zoomed out to the crowd, it almost looked like it was the same Ferris wheel that we were just seeing all weekend at Flog Gnaw. Though now I can't find it again, and my distraction is getting the better of me. So, I don't know. She's not in it. she has people inside of it during her performance, and she's still on the stage. And the box that she uses is a little bit smaller than the one that we see Kanye and Cudi in. You can see, actually, let's go here. You can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 segments, and a person takes up about one segment. And then Cudi, if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you have kind of 8 segments, but this is divided into 4 more squares rather than 6 rectangles. But visually, of course, they're very similar when you look at them, to where it's just like, okay, is that the same thing? But visually, it's also very similar to what Kanye did with these 2 things, and just being like, hey, let's enclose this shit. So, I don't know. Is it that he worked with Ez Devlin again, and she brought this concept to it, and was just like, hey, I did this for Lorde. Maybe we should do it for you. Or did Kanye just see this, and as he's done with some music, some shoe designs, he's sampling Lorde in his staging, the same way that he samples in fashion and song. That could be the case, but I don't know if this is necessarily stealing from Lorde. Like, I don't know. If she was currently touring with this, and Kanye, like, a month later started touring with this, I'd say maybe that's more of a dick move, as a tour is supposed to be this thing where we have something that you're coming to. Like, if somebody were to do a floating stage while Kanye's doing the St. Pablo tour because they were inspired by Kanye doing the floating stage, I think that would be a dick move. But if it's a year after Kanye did the floating stage and they're doing the floating stage, whatever. Though, to be fair, I did seem to have issues with, I think it was Jay-Z and Beyonce seemed to have a floating stage, but that's more just given the beef with Jay-Z and Beyonce and that they were taking shots at Kanye on Everybody's Love, Everything is Love, whatever the album was. That seemed a bit more petty to me than anything else. If Lorde were to take the floating stage from Kanye and use it, by all means, like, I'm not complaining about that. So I think I may more of a loose adaptation with what is stealing in this case, or what is taking and innovating upon what another performer did. Like, there was somebody that got on a stage for the first time and performed on a stage. Can nobody else ever perform on a stage because somebody did that? Or they had a platform that they went up on. Can nobody else ever use a platform? Like, I don't think that that's fair. So I think there has to be some room for allowing people to use a floating box in some capacity. I mean, Justin Bieber did it in 2016. Before Lorde, before Kanye, he was floating. So, I mean, he's not complaining. I don't know. Maybe if I was in the industry, I would understand more of the nuance of this and the perspective on this, and I'd be like, oh, yeah, how dare he? But right now, I think that this is Lorde maybe being a bit petty. We'll see what happens when more information comes out, but that's my take on it right now. I would love to hear your thoughts if you have things that you want to share. And if you have any requests for further videos, songs you want me to get into and talk about, I'd love to do a 3 things video about anything that you're curious about music-wise. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Take the time to subscribe. That would be much appreciated. And we will talk soon. I'm going to make a video tomorrow going over the delay of Yandhi. Another delay, but, Kanye gives us what we need. It may not be what we want. Until then, keep it loopy.